I never heard of it until I just chanced upon someone else's social media post. And here I find that people I know are very familiar with cases of children who maybe this disease does apply to.
Well,
That's
it's
all.
generally picked up in in small children because they are so reactive. But it is an interesting topic, and like I said, it was a good article. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Just one pause.
that's why I like the paralogium report, because you get more than one perspective.
Yes.
You know, and that means it's balanced better. So what do you have, Kat?
Well, I am a paranormal investigator, and this article caught my eye. This is from quickanddirtytips.com. It's a fairly interesting site, but the article that I'm going to share today is 6 possible scientific reasons for ghosts. And this is by Sabrina Stierwall, PhD, with Everyday Einstein. So, many people believe in ghosts, but could there be scientific explanations for some of our paranormal experiences? If you believe in ghosts, you're far from alone. Around 45% of Americans believe in ghosts, and as many as 18% will go so far as to say they've had contact with a ghost. I will also admit to speaking myself out on occasion when my dog has refused to stop barking at what appears to be an empty corner of the house. But what makes us feel like we are in the presence of a supernatural spirit? Are there possible scientific explanations for that tingling sensation you get in the back of your neck? Or the sudden feeling of uneasiness with an origin you can't quite place? Let's investigate 6 possible explanations for that paranormal feeling that are rooted in science rather than the supernatural. And the 6 possible scientific reasons for ghosts would be low frequency sound, mold, carbon monoxide, the power of suggestion, drafts, and that we simply enjoy being afraid. And in a little more detail, 1. Low frequency sound. Just as the human eye can only see light at a range of frequencies, for example, we can't see radio waves, the human ear can only hear sounds in a range of frequencies. Above 20,000 hertz, sounds are too high-pitched for our ears to parse them, like the echolocation calls of most bats that fall in this ultrasonic range. Similarly, human ears have trouble hearing low-frequency sounds below minus 20 hertz, known as infrasound, but such sounds do not go totally unnoticed. In a 2003 study, 22% of concert goers who were exposed to sounds at 17 hertz reported feeling uneasy or sorrowful, getting chills or nervous feelings of revulsion and fear. So what are some of the more ordinary origins of such low-frequency sounds? Weather events like earthquakes and volcanic activity or lightning, and communication between animals, including elephants, whales, and hippos, all can produce infrasound. And if you don't live by any volcanoes or hippos, but still think your house may be haunted, humans also create low-frequency sound via diesel engines, wind turbines, or some loudspeakers or chemical explosions. For number 2, mold. Breathing in toxic mold can be bad for your respiratory system, but it can also be bad for your brain. Exposure to mold is known to cause neurologic symptoms like delirium, dementia, or irrational fears. So, is it a coincidence that the houses we suspect are haunted also tend to be in disrepair and so quite possibly full of toxic mold? Scientists have worked to draw a firm link between the presence of mold and reported ghost sightings, but so far the evidence is mostly anecdotal. Number 3, carbon monoxide. Just as breathing in mold could lead us to see, hear, and feel things that aren't really there, so too can breathing in too much carbon monoxide. We have carbon monoxide detectors in our homes to make sure we're not breathing in this odorless, colorless gas that slowly poisons us while going undetected by our senses. But before a carbon monoxide gas leak poisons us, it can cause auditory hallucinations, a feeling of pressure on your chest, and an unexplained feeling of dread. An often told ghost story from the 1920s is about the H family, who moved into a new house only to hear footsteps, see apparitions, and feel malicious paranormal presences. Turned out to be the result of carbon monoxide poisoning from a broken furnace. The power of suggestion. Studies suggest that we are more likely to believe in a paranormal experience if someone else who was there can back up our belief. So while we might be able to convince ourselves that we were somehow mistaken about what we saw or heard, we tend to put more stock into someone else's eyewitness account if it also backs our suspicions. So our belief in ghosts can be catching. Similarly, I would like to extend an apology to anyone I ever played a game of Ouija with as a kid. The toy game board used to contact spirits always proved too tempting to resist, so the one moving it was always me and not a paranormal spirit, even though I was just as excited as everyone else. I know someone else who did that, just as an aside. Wasn't me. Number 5, drafts. As the days get hotter and air conditioning becomes more and more expensive, I rely more on opening windows to cool my home. Opening windows on opposite ends of a room can create a nice breeze, but it can also create cold spots as the airflow outside changes, causing cooler air to enter a warmer room. Drafts can also sneak in through chimneys and cause doors to slam or doorknobs to rattle. So before you schedule a seance, try closing a few windows. Number 6, we enjoy being afraid. Neurologists have found that our brains release dopamine, a chemical associated with pleasure, when we're afraid. Exactly how much dopamine and how many receptors we have for receiving it can influence whether you are a person that enjoys being frightened or someone who would rather avoid scary movies or rides altogether. So, for some, letting our imaginations run wild with the possibilities of cohabiting with ghosts, although scary, may also produce a bonus euphoric high. Of course, believing in ghosts also allows us to believe in the existence after life, which ultimately can be comforting. That is, if you can get past the feeling that someone is standing just behind you as you read this. Until next time, she says goodbye. And as a paranormal investigator, I found this simplistic and still interesting. Especially like the drafts part, because I am aware that fireplaces can draft. It's their job to do that. But what do y'all think? Jean, I know that you're not a paranormal investigator, but Kevin and Jennifer, y'all are. And Jean, a lot of this stuff is your
I was thinking,
process.
my first thought was that this is so parallel to UFO research. In other words,
I was just going to say,
what you read was a
paranormal
debunking article, basically
Yes.
a debunking article, and it's not. And yes, even with UFOs, as with UFOs, many cases reported are successfully debunked. That is, that which was reported as unidentified becomes identified. And I think this is what that writer was doing with ghosts. Am I right there? Take it away, Kevin and Jen.
Well, yeah. I mean, every time we investigate a case, you gotta the idea is to rule everything else out before you even go to that paranormal, before you look into the paranormal.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, exactly. I mean, there are so many things that can cause or are similar to, what we call paranormal. Now, does that mean, and yeah, I like, for instance, I believe that carbon monoxide. To me, that was one of the out of the 6 you mentioned, some held more credence to me than others. With carbon monoxide, it would be a short window, and you'd have to get just the right amount that would affect you in ways that wouldn't kill you, or dumb you down to the point of passing out and dying. But yeah, the idea in general that different gases can affect people, different mold spores can even affect people, in ways which may cause us to hallucinate or whatever. Of course, we look at other things like repetition and
right. You can get here's another example: creaky floors. It could be depending on the weather. If you're investigating a home and it's the kind of weather that we're experiencing up here, wood swells. So there's an example of what people can mistake for phantom footsteps on wood when it's really wood creaking.
Yes.
What we got right now is, and this has happened a couple times this week, someone's pounding on my house, and it's like, no, the ice is cracking.
Yeah.
Okay, because we have so much ice buildup right now. When the ice is melting and it cracks, you're bam on the house.
Whoa.
Because, but people
That's a
think
little freaky.
Yeah.
The phantom draft could be attributed to something wrong with the window fixture.
Mm-hmm.
Flickering lights, shortage in the circuit system, or shorted light bulbs. I mean, there's so much. There's actually a book, and I can't remember her name. We have it in the library somewhere. It's literally called "Is Your House Haunted?" And she goes through the motions of the whole entire book, and she explains this stuff to you, and she breaks it down so you know the difference between what your experience was actually natural phenomena versus paranormal phenomena.
You're right.
I'm no expert, but it seems to me if you walk into the kitchen and all the furniture is piled on top of the table, like I've seen in some of these movies, that would make me think that you are in some mischief on the part of the children in the house or other people. I would say, yeah, that's something notable. I'd make a note. Keep an eye on that.
I would say,
but in terms of a curtain fluttering, oh, come on, give me a break.
Exactly, especially with closed air heating and cooling.
Imagine a child reading this article, right, or a teenager. I've been hanging out on a social media watch party page on Facebook, which is a lot of youthful viewers of horror films, horror genre, which I've never looked at before. And you talk about this sense of fear, group fear, it building on itself and building from others, getting all psyched up about ghosts. Some of these films are about ghosts, and some of them are not good, but some of them are very good. And some of the stuff they're showing, I have to think, is based on reports and accounts. You could make this stuff up, and a lot of it's creepy deepy, as I call it clinically, and some of it I think really can't be debunked. Anyone who has half a brain should be able to tell the difference between a spiritual presence and a draft, I would think.
It's like Jennifer was saying when you were talking with Jax, Jen, when your best tool is you.
Yeah. Yeah, you are your body and your senses and your best piece of equipment, because if you walk into a home or a business place, if something's there, you will pick up on that before your equipment will.
Yes. And can I point out that it's break time? Yes,
it is.
Yes.
So if you are listening to Paraversal Universe, we will be right back with our guests for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.